I think that maybe I'm accidentally streaming my I don't know. I think I'm accidentally streaming my desktop. So if everyone can hear me right now and we're live and you're looking at my desktop icons, I hope you're asking a lot of questions about what those potential desktop icons are. Oh no, it seems that I figured it out. So that's good.
Perfect.
Yeah, thank Christ, dude, because I was getting a little anxious. That said, yo, you got your Audacity ready to roll? Oh, that's I need
I'm
to.
ready to roll. I'm gonna record and hit my clap.
Um, yeah, if you just want to give me a 1-2, because you're clap clip, like clap clipped.
1 2 1 2.
1-2, 1-2. That's for you, Leonard. All right.
1 2 1 2.
1-2 1-2. Mic check. 1-2 1-2. All right. I doubt anyone's gonna be watching this live. If you are watching this live, hope you're enjoying it. Let us know in the comments. I'm not really sure that I can even see the comments. So
1 2 1 2. Hopefully.
1-2 1-2. That's for you. I now have an eye on the comment section, and I was like living in the past by 15 seconds and heard me and you doing a quick 1-2 1-2 for our microphone sync check. So that was trippy as hell. Man. If you're hearing this, I'm assuming maybe patrons, maybe you got an uncut copy of this. I don't. Maybe you'll get a video. Who knows? Welcome into Dragon Ball Super Dope. My name is Kyle. Thank you for checking this out. It's kind of like a part 3 now, I think. It's like a continuation of last week's episode, or the last episode we put out. That was probably about a week ago now. Last episode we put out, we did an episode with the NPC pod, wherein basically I went on their show and bitched about the moral arc at length, and then we had them come over to discuss chapters 59 and chapter 60 for Dragon Ball Super. That was with Leonard, Paul, and Katie. I have been trying to record with Jimmy for most of the last 10 days. I think we've had 4 individual recording dates set up to record, and each time it just fucking Jimmy, dude. But I called Leonard and said, "Hey, Leonard, I know that Katie and I know that Katie and Paul made a joke about me, like commandeering you for my show, and I hate to like try to act on that so quickly, but you did great last week. You want to be on Super Dope this week?" Leonard, how you doing, dude?
I'm doing good, man. I'm feeling great that I'm now 4/5 of a person instead of 3/5. So, you
Jesus,
know,
just jumping right into the slavery jokes. I felt kind of weird having said the commandeering you for our show thing, but maybe a better way is to say no. Never mind. Every word that just popped into my brain was not a better word. So what I'll say is I'm happy to have you back. I thought it was a good idea to have you back as well because there was 4 of us on last week, and Katie and Paul are into Dragon Ball, but they weren't keeping up with the manga like you were. So much to the point, like when I talked to you first about setting up that crossover piece, we you said you had a little bit to catch up on, and then I talked to you 2 days later or 3 days later, and you read all 60 chapters. Um, that said, I guess give me your own general impressions of the moral arc because I feel like I just kind of talked too much last week. How do you feel about the moral arc in general at this point?
well, the moral arc is like, hey, so we have Frieza, but he's not Frieza. But then we put Cell, but he's not Cell. And then we have, you remember Hit from Super, right?
Oh yeah, right.
Yeah. So we take his techniques and put it in there. And then to top it all off, we're going to make him do a fusion dance.
Yeah. This definitely does seem to be shaping up to be one of those like almost like a Dragon Ball greatest hits. You know what I mean? Like we've
Yeah.
seen the old version, we've seen the youth version, we've seen we just saw at the end of chapter 61 today the fusion version. Like I've seen old Piccolo then become young Piccolo. You know what I mean? Like that was already a thing. Um, then we have him revert back, like when Vegeta actually punches the power out of him with his Yardrat technique. Like he reverts back to old Moro. That was very reminiscent of Perfect Cell losing Android 18 and reverting back to Imperfect Cell, or Half Perfect Cell, however the fuck you want to equate that one. Um, and now we know that Fusion, not that Fusion hasn't been a part of the series in recent memory, but I was hoping it was gonna maybe avoid I was hoping I was going to avoid this arc more than we've already kind of had it, because we had like the Namekian ultimate fusion to try to team up to defeat Moro, and I was like, all right, that's a clever utilization of fusion, kind of in the background. We don't really need to do anything more with that. Leave the fusion on the bench for this one. Um, but no, like 2 chapters later or 3 chapters later, Moro's taking his 1B, the mini boss or whatever, and gobbling his ass up into a fusion. Sounds worse than I meant it.
It sounds great, man. It's like he almost grapefruit technique 73.
Jesus. I wanted to say like a human centipede thing because I said gobbled his ass up, but I've decided that I'll refrain from making any comments about the human centipede.
Yeah, I think we all tried to forget about it.
So we can't unsee what's burned into the back of our eyelids. So for chapter 61, Vegeta Reborn. This is the culmination of the last probably 4 months of events, um, or 4 months of speculation, I should say. It hasn't really been super eventful. Some training, some ass whoopings. I think it was an ass whooping, a training, another
Yeah,
ass
ass
whooping.
whooping, training, ass whooping, uh, more training. Uh, Vegeta pulling a Goku at let me get here at the last minute.
Yeah, yeah, perfectly. Let me conveniently learn instant transmission just for this one time and this one time only, so I can get there on time. I'm never gonna know this technique again. That still really pissed me off from chapter 60.
Yes.
Um, if you're really gonna try to highlight Vegeta as, especially for this chapter, like I don't know if this is necessarily how it's gonna work out, because again, I think they're gonna bone Vegeta in the end and give the win to Goku or somebody else or Miris or some god who's gonna undo things because things got so bad in typical Dragon Ball Super fashion. But for the last few months, they've set Vegeta up to be that guy who seems to be posturing for the win. Why wouldn't you just say, yeah, you're so good, you're such a prodigy, you've done so well on Planet Yardrat. Not only did you learn this forced spirit fission technique, but you also mastered instant transmission immediately. Like that, what a great way to say or highlight. Um, this is how good Vegeta is. Like that shit that Goku had such a hard time learning back in the Frieza saga. Vegeta learned it in 15 minutes because he needed to save the day.
Yeah.
So, forced spirit fission is the technique or the saving grace, whatever you want to call it, that Vegeta shows up with in order to combat Moro. And it's described basically as a technique that will like dissipate or break apart like the combination of powers or fusion of powers, or like absorption of powers. So it's a very action heavy chapter 61. But you see when Vegeta shows up on the scene, he just a lot of body shots and then a lot of energy expel sort of all at once out of Moro, and it's a cool visual. You see it like fly up into the atmosphere and all these little chunks and shards, and everyone kind of wonders around them like, what the fuck are we watching? Who's this dude on the scene right now? um, what the heck did we just witness? And he does explain it super briefly. Doesn't really explain it so much as mentions what it is to Goku. Goku's like, oh yeah, that thing that I learned about 20 years ago that I totally forgot about, and how I couldn't have learned it back then because I was a failure or you're not as strong or whatever. things like that fucking bother me, if I'm being honest. I'd rather them just have said, oh, wow, I never heard of that one. I was caught up in the muck of like trying to learn instant transmission. I never even had this forced spirit fission on my radar. That would have been a better way to do that. To say like, "Oh, I knew about it and couldn't learn it," that annoys me.
Oh yeah. I definitely feel that irritation. One of the it was like it was funny because the way Vegeta described it, which like you said, described it perfectly. But basically the way I thought about it was like, okay, so you're telling me Vegeta learned Spirit Bomb, but instead of attacking someone with it, you take it and put it back everywhere else where it belonged. This is like every like mother's gift for a child to be like, hey, guess what? You put your toys back. Good job.
Yo, that's actually a really good way to put it, though. It's like a reverse spirit bomb almost. Instead of like the culmination of everyone's energy coming in together for this one big attack, or in Moro's case, this one singular powerful entity, it's like the dissipation of said combination of power. That's basically exactly how forced spirit fission is like described. So that's a interesting point, dude. I didn't think about that. That's like sort of the antithesis of Goku's like, besides the Kamehameha, his like other
Yeah.
signature technique. That's a good
Yeah.
catch, dude.
Yeah, I mean, like that was instantly what I thought of, and I was like, this is like amazing because like my whole thing was just like, okay, so every time he hits him, he's taking that power and storing it up. And every time, and then when he, of course, the way I like to say it, the way it just busts
Yeah, right.
into everyone gain their lives back together. Sounds like a weird reverse sex story. But
But also a weird reverse sexy spirit bomb.
exactly. Um, but the whole point of it I thought was really cool, and especially the line shared between Vegeta and Piccolo saying, "Oh, I can redo any like almost any fusion." Of course, I don't know the exact line, but when he was talking to Piccolo, he's like, "Even your fusion." That triggered something. Of course, we're going to talk about that a little bit later, probably, but
Yeah,
it
so
triggered something for me.
you read that. So I kind of read that at first and thought the same thing. Like, is he talking about Piccolo and the fact that he's got energy inside him from Kami and Nail? But then when I turned the page, I realized that at least maybe I just missed the rest of the context. Maybe I did. Bad on me. I've only read the chapter twice. But when I turned the page, I took that line to mean they're setting up for the next thing I wanted to talk about with the forced spirit fission is the revival of all the Namex. I thought that he was just hinting like I could, this potential power could even revive, a people like you or a people like yours. Because Dende then goes on to say like they do a little cutaway to the lookout and they kind of oh no, excuse me, they do a cutaway to Planet Yardrat and the Paibara is commenting that Vegeta is on Earth, he's fighting against Moro, and he's landed that technique, and the energy from Moro has, since started to dissipate or leave his body, and he's since reverted to the old form. And one of them asks the other, "Does that mean everyone's going to regain their lives?" And they specifically say, people who were like murdered by Moro, like in a fight,
Right.
they're not going to come back to life. But people whose life force he essentially, ate, sucked out of, whatever you want to fucking
Grapefruit technique.
grapefruit technique, whatever you want to say, those people, if they have, they kind of prefaced it like I think they said it was like a prolonged life force or something like that.
Right.
So also Dende kind of alludes to the idea that maybe the protection from the Dragon Balls that were on planet Namek allowed this to happen. I think Dende is just pulling shit out of his butthole, because
Yeah.
that's where shit lives in your butthole. I don't think Namekians have buttholes,
I don't think so either. Side note, neither do they have penises nor vagina or peni.
dude. I don't know where you're getting your facts from, but I know for a fact, Piccolo has the biggest dick.
If you're talking about Gohan, yes, Gohan was the biggest dick. Mind you, in the Cell arc when he said, "Oh, hey, guess what? Now I'm gonna pull a dad and Vegeta and all the Saiyans are here."
Yeah, he's a little bit of a dick, but no, I meant like his equipment, his junk, his schlong. Piccolo's got a Namek wiener.
Oh yeah, his arm, yeah, because his arms go. Woo.
Oh man. Yeah, I guess, who needs a wiener when you can just ball up your fist and extendo stretch, yeah?
Exactly.
That was dirtier than I no, about as dirty as I meant it. So, perfect segue, right? Piccolo actually kind of plays an important part while he's watching Vegeta lay this beat down and employ this new technique. He is the one to, and I said it to you before we hit the record button. He's the guy who has the moment with Goku where he's like having the monologue on behalf of Vegeta, being like, "Wow, look at how far this guy's come and how much he's changed in the time that we've met him, and how he arrived on Earth ready to destroy the Earth, and now he's ready to lay it all on the line in order to save us." Seems like he's really trying to atone for his sins and wipe the slate clean, I believe is the exact phrasing that they use.
Right.
So I like I like this scene and I don't like this scene. If you haven't listened to the first two episodes that me and Leonard have now done together, this is now our third one in a row. You'll know if you listen to the first two. I thought the moral arc started very, very strongly. The last few chapters, dude, it has really started to stumble and just kind of rely on old tricks and tropes. I mean, and that's not like new to Dragon Ball. It's just what Dragon Ball has done for a very long time. I realize that when I say that, but this time kind of pisses me off because it started from a place where I was like, oh, this seems like it could be a new, different thing, and it's quickly devolved into the same old nonsense. But this Piccolo thing is something that is indicative of what I just described. Like it's kind of like another callback to like a Vegeta atonement, Majin Vegeta sacrificing himself, with the final explosion thing. Him doing it again in Tournament Power, episode 122 or whatever it is. You can go listen to the podcast that we did on that one like 3 years ago in your feed now. Piccolo outlining how much progress Vegeta has undergone since he originally showed up on Earth. It's a callback that I don't hate because I always like to see Vegeta get a little bit of shine and have, Piccolo, one of my other favorite secondary kind of characters these days, be the one to illustrate that. So I'm happy this moment happened, but at the same time, I'm like, yo, what the fuck? I've seen this moment. Like, it's like hearing a song that you like for the 100th time. It's like, yo, I still like the song, but it's like, what the fuck, dude? You could have picked a different song on this one.
Deja vu.
Deja vu is like, oh, where have I heard this before? I know exactly where I've heard this before, and I just gave you two solid examples of it by thinking about it for 15 seconds.
Exactly.
Oh, shit.
Um, for me on this part, so I love it. Like no matter, I feel like this is the one trick pony that sadly I will never get tired of. And what I mean by never get tired of, I mean because I like Vegeta. Like Vegeta and I like just something about us just makes everything perfect. That sounded really wrong. But anyways,
Sounded worse than you meant it, but hey, he's a sexy man.
hey, it is what it is. The horny police are after me anyway, so might as well just let them catch me with my
Bonk.
pants down. No horny. Uh, but yeah, I mean, like when it was the Majin Vegeta and Majin Buu arc, like that to me was like, okay, this is really good, like the way they did it. Part of me didn't like it just because it kind of fell out at the end where it was just like, oh, hey, I'm back now. I mean, the way that they represented it, I felt like was decent. Where they're like, okay, yeah, you have a limited amount of time. We need you to defeat Majin Buu. If you don't, the whole world's destroyed. And Vegeta was like, okay, I accept that I'm going to hell anyways, but I'll do the right thing. To me, that was sort of good, but I feel like they should have done it a different way. Now, coming up to 20 years later to where this is going on right now, and it's Vegeta saying, like, oh, I'm atoning for my sins. And Piccolo's like, oh, look how far he came. The first thing I wanted to say was Piccolo saying that. I felt like Piccolo also kind of reflected on himself because if you think about it, he kind of did the same thing. Look at Demon King Piccolo. Like
100%.
he did the exact same thing and came back.
There were a
So
lot of
Piccolo realizing
callbacks
that,
to the first Piccolo arc when you look at Moro
yeah,
as a villain, but also if you look at this a Vegeta atonement thing and Piccolo being the guy to like narrate it in this scene, yeah, perfect connection.
yeah, and that's why, like for me, I'm like, I like this because Piccolo's narrating, like you said, he's narrating it to Goku, and Goku's like, even like, yeah, I know.
Yo, my favorite thing about Goku is like, huh, atone, huh? Thinks he's going to hell, eh? Like Goku's real fucking simple about it. Like he needs Piccolo in that moment to be like,
Yeah,
you see the stuff your friend's doing? I know that you just got a little bit of a chub because you see how strong he is, and now you've got something to aspire to in terms of a training regimen or whatever. But he's doing like some real personal growth right before your eyes, and Goku's like, what the fuck's personal growth? What is
yeah,
that?
exactly. Like, I mean, I could go into Goku's growth and it's a whole different story. But with Vegeta, I mean, it's something where for me, for this arc, I love it just because I kept reading the panel. Like, even when I went back today to read it, I went back to that exact panel where you see him punching Moro and you see the fission move just go back into all the Namekians. And I was like, yes, this is what we need.
It
And
was
I won't go any further because we're gonna go into the next part. But basically, what I want trying to say is the way that they set it up, I felt like was perfect. But the way that they're ending it, sorta, is not the way I was hoping for. And any Vegeta fan can say that.
yeah. Well, it's funny. It's funny because I did spend a good portion on our pods last week bitching about how they're gonna do my boy dirty like this, and it kind of ties into what you said earlier about the reverse spirit bomb idea of what the forced spirit fission technique is. Um, it's like the antithesis of a spirit bomb. It's the antithesis of a fusion, of some kind of absorption, of some kind of culmination of that. And, spoiler alert, at the end of the chapter, we do get a fusion. Exactly that. A fusion, black and white, clear as day, between Moro and 7-3. So I do think it's worth noting that Vegeta's technique is specifically stated by him in this chapter to be a thing that would combat well against a fusion. I say that because, again, I spent a lot of time bitching about how I thought Vegeta was about to get done dirty. I don't think he's done in this chat, or I don't think he's done in this arc yet, which is good. I just feel like now that there's a fusion on the other side, and Vegeta has a technique of value that Goku doesn't have, it's we're gonna almost have to get a fucking fusion between these two. Um, I would assume it would have to be Gogeta, unless they don't want to do that because that was the one that we most recently saw. But I could see
Quick, Kakarot, put your penis in mine. We'll fuse.
That's not how this for the fifth time, Vegeta. That's not how this works. We've already tried this 4 times. Um, I don't know. I just feel like it's worth mentioning that I don't think Vegeta's done in this arc as I did maybe a few weeks ago. But I do certainly think his role is almost definitely, as it usually is, always will be, probably facilitated through Son Goku. So watching the Namekians get their lives back, that was cool. Like I'm a little worried this is gonna be like Vegeta's highlight solo moment of the arc. That's definitely still a concern for me. This is gonna be about as cool as Vegeta seems, for until whenever the fuck he needs to have this moment for the next major arc of the series. But seeing the Namekians get their lives back seems like a nice, like Piccolo said, like an atonement moment, especially when you consider all the Namekians he slaughtered back in the day during the Frieza arc. Like, it is kind of a nice wrap up for him. It is quickly undone when he gets the go ahead to kill Moro from Jocko. Jocko's like, I don't give a shit if this guy lives or not. You can kill him if you want. Vegeta does rev up to kill him and basically says to Moro, hey, I'm about to blast you to basically says to Moro, hey, I'm about to blast you to hell. And again, it kind of ties into the Piccolo fan service moment that we were talking about, the
Mm.
callbacks to Majin Vegeta stuff. Like I love Majin Vegeta as much as the next dude, but you just borrowed on Majin Vegeta for the Tournament of Power, you know, 2 years ago. Why you got to do it again now? But Moro stops and questions him and says, "What, you think you're not gonna go to hell?" And we get that cool Vegeta moment. He's like, "Yeah, no, I'll see you there. I'm a villain. I've accepted that. I understand what my ultimate fate is gonna be, but I'm gonna do what's right anyway. I'm gonna protect the Earth." Admirable. It would feel way fucking cooler if I hadn't already seen it a couple of different times. But the only reason I stopped to point it out, people were very, very upset about this line where he says, basically in response to Moro, Moro says, "You don't think you're going to hell?" And Vegeta just says, "Oh no, I'm a villain. I've accepted my fate." This line sent the Twitter world, anime Twitter, Dragon Ball nerds everywhere, were just like laying down in the street waiting for 18 wheelers to come, thinking that Dragon Ball Super Vegeta is now an inferior product to Dragon Ball GT Vegeta. And that's definitely not a tease for a live stream that we'll be doing in 2 weeks with Aunt Gramulia from CBR.com. What do you think about this, Leonard? This line about him being a villain?
Uh, I love it. As much as everyone may have been like, "Oh no, just fucking kill me." No, like I loved it because the thing about Vegeta was I think even it caught back to a point where, like I said, when he was revived from the Majin Buu arc, where he was revived and he's like, "Oh, you're only here to save the Earth." Like now thinking back to or fast forwarding to the present, it makes a lot of sense because he knows what he's done. He tried to blow up the Earth. He killed like hundreds, if not almost thousands, of Namekians. He's literally killed people. Of course, luckily they were brought back to life.
Dude,
But
the
then,
death count on Vegeta has got to be in the billions. It has to be in the
exactly,
billions. The dude literally used
exactly,
to exterminate planets null and void of all life as his 9 to fucking 5. Like, his body count is in the billions. That dude is so going to hell.
exactly. And I think though I like what I personally liked about it was just the realism. He knows. He's like, look, I know what I do today won't mean anything. But if I can at least help people at the end of the day and say, yeah, I freaking did something to stop this, or I guess for his saying, as long as I'm stronger than Kakarot, then yeah, go for it, man. Because in the end, I'm tired of like, I mean, I know people say, oh, Goku's never won, but when it comes to these type of moral victories, I would
Oh,
say that
I was waiting for the first loving dad joke of the night.
I would say though that Goku wins most of them. Like he's the one that's like, okay, like whenever he does something, he's just for it. And even like to call back to the Tournament of Power when in the anime himself, where he's like, "Oh, you can hurt all the people in the world, I don't care, but no one hurts my friends." Like he doesn't consider himself a hero.
Yeah.
Everyone knew. It was like, really, Goku? You sure about that? Because you saved the world countless amounts of times.
You could kill all 8 billion people on God's green earth, but I swear to God, if you fucking fuck with my buddy Krillin, I will genocide the entire universe.
Exactly. And when he said that, I was just like, okay, I mean, in the moment that sounds cool, but that's not Goku.
Yep.
Goku, I feel like wouldn't have said that. But now for Vegeta, it's like this is the part where I feel like Akira Toriyama, and I can't remember his other name, so I'm gonna call him Akiro because
Toitaro.
Toritaro,
Yep.
thank you. Um I feel like Toritaro was just like, okay, I want to give Vegeta that chance where he knows what he is and that he's proud of it. And even though, yes, he knows he was bad, he's gonna still be like, whatever, I'm still doing the right thing. If you don't like it, you can take the Dragon Balls and wish for GT, I guess.
So, all right, yeah, great callback to the GT Super Vegeta thing. That was really what made me stop and pause. Was I saw some people say, "All right, this definitively is proof that GT Vegeta is better than Super Vegeta." And like I said, me and Ant are going to talk specifically about Vegeta in 2 weeks. I think we picked July 12th, so be on the lookout for more information on that. It'll be a YouTube live stream like we're doing tonight. What I don't like about people's reaction to this "I'm a villain" line is that it's kind of like the most Vegeta thing that Vegeta does. Like Vegeta's always just like reclaiming his ability to say that he's a badass. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
obviously, again, Majin Vegeta is the most blatant example. But like I think another example that kind of ties into this too is I think the dub translation lends itself best to it. But when he explains how he shows up to defeat the androids and he's finally achieved Super Saiyan, and he's like, "Yeah, you need a pure heart, fucking pure evil." Like he's always been about being a badass. So even though he's like middle-aged dad status with a couple of kids and a wife, who happens to be like the most rich, wealthy woman in the goddamn universe, probably. Um, Even though he's got like a very comfortable life on Earth and has very much adapted and has embraced that kind of life, like we've seen him fighting on behalf of the Earth, going back to the androids, I guess. But like Majin Buu is when he's really like embracing his role as Goku's number two. Ever since then, he's served quite diligently in that role. But to think that he's not above being like, yeah, I'm a fucking domesticated soccer dad who whoops ass on the weekends, but you know what? I'm also a badass, evil motherfucker too. Like, to think that undermines the entirety of his character, fuck out of here, dude. That's like an edgelord hot take. You're just trying to say you like GT Vegeta and his mustache. That's all you're trying to
Yeah.
say. Fuck out of here. All right. Glad I got most of that off my chest. In a few weeks, we'll have more examples specifically about that. But there's a reason everybody hates Dragon Ball GT. And I will tell you, one of the biggest reasons is Vegeta. You're not thinking about that now because you're thinking about Vegeta in Super Saiyan 4 form. And you're like, ooh, that was cool. Super Saiyan 4 is such a cool character design. Yeah. Think about the steps that we took to get to Super Saiyan 4. See you in 2 fucking weeks on YouTube, buddy. Moving on. I got all that off my chest. Leonard, thank you for hearing me out on that.
Hey, I'm here for the moral support.
God damn it, Leonard. That was such
Oh, how many puns can I think of today?
not
A
enough.
lot.
Not enough for me, baby. That was such a Brandon line. That was great. I wish you knew Brandon because oh my god, if you and Brandon were on a podcast together, I would just be getting double teamed by two dads.
Sounds like a great Brazzers.com clink.
I said what I said. So now that I got all my Vegeta angst off of my chest, and again, it kind of ties into that as well, like all of the callbacks to this series. Moro is on the ropes, and what is the logical explanation to get him back in the realm of being a threat? Fusion, absorption, some combination of either or. Um, Vegeta gets the okay from Jocko to kill him, him being Moro. Um, doesn't necessarily need him to go back alive. Um, Moro says, "Hey, I'm old and you know, got all my energy out of me or whatever, but I still got magic. Watch me do some magic stuff." And he is really quick to get over to 7-3. He kills the little dude with 7-3. I can't think of his name. It's like Shika Roma.
Shithead.
Yeah, Shika Fuckface is what I think it was. He kills Shika Fuckface really quickly and then just absorbs 7-3. And again, we started it off. We started it off with it reminds you of Cell, reminds you of Frieza, reminds you of Hit. When he absorbs 7-3, Moro suddenly has this new design where you can see all three of those characters very plainly. Um, like, we're talking about callbacks a lot today. The entire design of the Fusion Moro, I assume they still call him Moro, but the Moro 7-3 Fusion, the design of it is it's one fucking it's three callbacks amalgamated into one fucking being, basically. I like, are you guys running out of ideas? I thought the idea was to bring in Toyotaro and Akira Toriyama could retire, so Toyotaro could do some new shit. Like, I don't know.
Well, I feel like so to kind of go back on something, something that you and I talked about. I think either it was probably off podcast, but we do have a really defined and genuine love for Totally Not Mark.
We do,
Uh,
yes.
if y'all don't know him, look him up. Really fantastic videos about Dragon Ball and his journey to One Piece. But
For
anyways,
sure.
um, definitely one thing that I realized and stuck in my head for the longest time because it's such a weird process. Akira Toriyama will literally draw out things. I think give out certain little notes and send it to them. Like
Do you mean for Dragon Ball Super?
I believe so. I believe it was for Dragon Ball Super, and to kind of like to think about that, I'm just like, huh. Like the preparation for that. I mean, I'm pretty sure Toyotara is pretty much just like, oh my god, I'm still so happy that I get to work on this. Let me do every throwback I possibly can. Which, sure, it can get old fairly quickly. But when you have to release the new Moro 73, he gets to do magic and kick your ass all at once. It's like, bro, like you're really just going on, hey, which enemy did you like the most? Did you like Frieza? Did you like Cell? Did you like Hit?
Yeah.
Did you want all of them together? Like it to me, it's at that point where they just, like you said, they completely ran out of ideas. It was just like, let's do another callback, and the callback just didn't make sense.
So, I feel like maybe you hit on something a little bit there, or at least you said something that got my brain rolling down the other way. I'm not really sure, but Toyotaro, and again, we covered this in depth about 3-4 weeks ago now with Aunt Gramulia about the Dragon Ball AF explanation, like how that started. Toyotaro was the guy who was like picked it up and made it into like a regular fan manga, you know, regular recurring series. You think about why he would do a project like that, it's because he's a fan. Like, that's always been my thing about Toyotaro. I'm a fan of Toyotaro because I think it's fucking awesome to know that one of us, like a fan who grew up with the content like you and I did, one of us is in the, you know, as close to the driver's seat as he can be right now.
Right.
With Akira Toriyama still, you know, alive and in the picture and very much in play in a lot of ways. You said Toriyama for Super, at least the anime, and this is how it was with GT as well. He did some character designs, he did some art designs, some loose ideas, and that was about the extent of it. When Super restarted, it started in the form of 2 movies. Obviously, he had scripted and wrote both of those, and that spans for about the first 35 episodes of Super. So by the time those two pre-existing stories are up in the anime, at that point, I imagine Toei was the people to say, "Hey, we're going to do a Future Trunks arc." That's one of the best. Calling about talking about callbacks and fan service stuff. Toei would probably be the first in line to want to bring back Future Trunks. Now that Toriyama is sort of back to the status quo, and by status quo I mean the comic books are coming before the anime, so the creative ideas and storyline and the narrative, they're coming from the comic books instead of the cartoon for the first time since Super came back in 2015. And I wonder if now that he's, and again, it's a different format than it was when it was Dragon Ball or Dragon Ball Z comic books. That was a weekly Shonen Jump. This is now a monthly chapter. It's a different format. I wonder how engaged Homeboy is in trying to make these stories work, or trying to get new ideas into the story. Not that he's ever been, maybe this is a dumb question, because he's never really been super original. Like, he's always been somebody to quickly recycle his own material. But I just wonder, like, at what point does he kind of say, all right, Toyotaro, you take over and do your thing now for the comic book? And how much does Toyotaro say, well, I know that I liked this thing when I was reading this part of the Boo saga, or this part of the Cell saga. I know I liked that thing, so I'm going to borrow from that scene or that idea. From an artistic perspective, it's like well documented that Toyotaro does a lot of referencing to past Dragon Ball, iconic Dragon Ball panels and cells or whatever, and that kind of ties into the fan service aspect that that's like the greater theme of this episode, I guess, today is fan service. But he's also been accused of tracing poses straight out of Marvel comic books, that Captain America shit that happened a couple years ago. I just wonder, like, is Toyotaro the right fucking guy? I don't know.
Right. I mean, I guess, to really think about it, because even what you said, it's like, this is a fan that's in the closest like part we could ever hope to imagine to like being like part of the Dragon Ball like production team itself.
He's second in command,
And
man. Not
yeah,
that,
like,
I mean, as second in command as you can be, in regard to like
yeah,
editors or whatever kind of hierarchy there is there. But like, you're number 2 to Akira Toriyama. That's what most kids dream about.
exactly. And I think for him, I think the biggest thing is just like it's probably the pressure and timing, I would like to say. But then it's also the pressure of, well, what's something that sounds super Dragon Ball like?
I mean, that's how the dude came up anyway. Like, that's literally how this guy cut his teeth in Dragon Ball, was by ripping off Dragon Ball. So much to the
Yeah,
point that he didn't have his own original ideas. He just repurposed Dragon Ball characters and ideas into his own fan manga. Which, on paper, that prime time, like, that makes him a prime time candidate to take it over. But does it make him a primetime? It makes him a primetime candidate to take it over if the intention is to keep the status quo.
right.
Does that make him the primetime candidate if he is he going to be able to grow the series at all? Is he going to be able to help us expand this at all? Because I love Vegeta so much. Like, but even me seeing this whole like I'm atoning for my sins thing in a third time in pretty quick succession, when you consider how the arcs line up. Like, Trunks was 7 last year. Trunks is 9 last year. Or Trunks was 8 last year. Trunks is 10. This is terrible math that I'm trying to do. My point is, not being able to have Vegeta like have that moment with some finality. Every time he does it, it just completely negates the impact from prior moments. Like, when I go back and watch a Majin Vegeta moment now, I'm just like, yeah, I remember when this hit me 10 years ago. Now they redid it in the Tournament of Power, and now they kind of done like a soft version of it in this moral thing, and now this doesn't mean as much to me.
Yeah.
I think so that basically I didn't plan on talking about any of what we just talked about. A lot of this conversation has just kind of evolved organically because the callbacks in this series are at times awesome and at times a major detriment. And this chapter does a good job of doing callbacks that suck ass or doing callbacks that kick ass, but also kind of make me frustrated and wonder like, why do I even still fucking care about Dragon Ball?
Yeah.
um,
And I think honestly that's what most viewers or people who are even reading feel the same way, because it's just like, oh, it feels like it's just the same thing over again. And for that, I just say this. For me, like, to think about how, if I was in Toyotaro's like position itself, man, I'd be first thing I'd do is shit my pants, because I'm like, bro, I'm working with the Kira Toriyama.
right?
But the second thing is just like to think about a good story arc, like even for itself, like from where it started to where it is right now, like it's still really good, in my opinion. In fact, I would even go as far to say, because my favorite arc was Goku Black, but my favorite arc right now is this. This is top number one, because like
Wow.
it brought back some of the lore, and that's what I loved about it, because it's just like, dude, Toyotaro literally said, hey, remember how Majin Buu sucked this one guy, pause, and and like literally everyone forgot about it. Yeah, we're bringing that back, and I love that. If you kept doing that, like little things like that, probably Toyotaro would probably, I mean, people would probably get tired of it. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, because I feel like I totally went off, but
No. You just brought up a great point, and I think I talked about it a little bit on the shows. One of the two pods we did last week, like that's one of the more interesting callbacks to a piece of Dragon Ball lore, where we got a small piece of it, at the beginning of the Majin Buu arc, and you don't really get any kind of follow up or explanation on it ever again. So for him to call that out and bring that up and have that be part of this arc in general was super interesting because we haven't seen it since then. And it was something back
right,
then that we didn't get like so much of. Like we didn't see the entire thing play out, but a little bit of a piece of it. And he built off of it and expanded it. And that's what made that interesting. Seeing Vegeta atone, quote unquote, without the fucking explosions this time, granted. Seeing him atone for a third time or whatever by trying to save the world from the villain, I love Vegeta more than probably anybody, but the third time around, it's less impactful, you know.
yeah,
So
it's
there are good
definitely,
callbacks, there are bad
yeah,
callbacks.
it's the one where it's like when you try the food and it's like the first time is good, it's really good. Second time you're like meh. Third time you're just like, did I really like this?
Yeah, you just kind of grow like it's like oversaturation. You
Yeah,
just you get a little bit too used to it. You grow to appreciate it less and less the more and more you have it. That's what
right,
makes something like the Grand Kaio coming back and being a part of the story a really cool callback to old Dragon Ball stuff, and Vegeta atoning for like the 15th fucking time, not as cool. So,
right.
cool side tangent. Didn't plan on that one. Wasn't in the notes. There are notes. The last thing I wanted to talk to you about. So we talked a little bit about the appearance of the fusion for Moro in 7-3.
Right.
What I didn't like about it was, I mean, it looks cool. The design is cool, but um, how they describe it. So Vegeta does the Forced Spirit Fission. He reverts back to old Moro. He's weaker, still has his magic or whatever, but like can't physically fight Vegeta. Uses his magic to get to 7-3 quickly, absorbs him, and like the reasoning or like the explanation was 7-3 basically held a copy of Moro's power that has since been, you know, uh, forced spirit fissioned, whatever the fuck, out of him by Vegeta. He held a copy of that power and is essentially a backup of all of Moro's combat abilities. So I don't like that explanation because I feel like it's either one or the other. I don't know if it's both. And then they say, he's also given the edge of, just how powerful 7-3 is in general. So is he a battery in terms of the power, or is he a battery in terms of your combat moves and abilities? Like, can it be both? If it is both, why didn't you just say that? Like, the way they tried to kind of explain it with, I don't know, I don't want to say legalese because it's obviously not any kind of legal terms, but backup of combat ability, what the fuck does that mean?
So he's basically an SD card for a Samsung. that's
Explain.
that's
Explain.
that's basically the only way to describe him. He's literally an SD card that you put in your Samsung. It's like, oh hey, where's all my other data? Oh hey, I found it in my old S3 that tends to short out every once in a while. Let me put it back in here. Oh, great. Now I have all the pictures. Now I have every move, every combat skill, everything, even the little magic dice sprinkle. Like it's like, dude, like I didn't know that. I mean, I know 7-3 has a special power, but is he a robot as well now? Like, is he like a robotic life form? Is he
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think he's a robot. I do kind of get he's not an android because that was like the
yeah.
thing when the android showed up was that the artificial human power, like their unlimited power, was a good thing to be able to combat them in Moro. So he's not quite android level. I think he's an organic be. I'm not sure, dude. I don't know. You should know.
It's it's definitely a weird concept because I mean, I think it's interesting. I like where Toyotora's going with this because it's like, okay, this doesn't sound Dragon Ball, but this is definitely different. Um, Now is it like the one where you say, "Oh, write that down, Johnny. This is a great idea." Maybe not, because especially for Dragon Ball fans will be fickle. They know what they want, but at the same time, they know what they don't want. They will simply say, hey, you remember that part? Yeah, let's not do that. Hey, remember that part? I loved that. Hey, remember that part? Do something different. I don't know what, but do something different about it. But that's the thing about Dragon Ball or about this arc in general. It's different but similar, and it gives you that weird feeling where it's like it gives you familiarity. Wow, I can't even speak. Familiarity, but at the same time, it gives you something where it's like you have to think about it. But that's why I think this arc is or this chapter is good because now you're just confused. You don't know what the hell's going on. It's like you literally woke up and the whole house is on fire. You're like, okay, well, how did like we know how we got here because we walked in and everyone was partying, but what? Like
What?
how did we get here? Like I guess the moral of the story here is
God damn it.
just Moro 73, the new future model car. Buy yours today for about 1500 yen.
It's like, wow, that's a very, very cheap car. He is a male alien android with an appearance very similar to Hit.
Yeah.
7-3 has two bumps similar to horns on his head, eyes with black sclera, white pupils, and no iris. So I read all of that to get to biography. 7-3 was created on a planet with advanced science and technology. Somehow, Sagambo, which I'm assuming is that dude who got murked by Moro just before the fusion happened, somehow Sagambo encountered him and added him to his group. 7-3 then rampaged throughout the universe with them until they were caught by the Galactic Patrol and imprisoned in the Galactic Jail. It's actually called a prison
I'm
because I
calling it
think it's
Space Jail.
yeah, I think
It's next to
prisons.
Space Australia.
What's the difference, man? Prisons are federally funded. I think is the difference. So, space prison,
Does the galaxy fund it?
galactic prison. I think
Galactic
it's
Prison.
yeah, I think it's federally funded galactically. How do you galactically funded?
I guess all the it's like the the spirit bomb technique instead of like sending out your spirit energy, you send your money throughout that way. So it's like every like someone's like, "Oh, Johnny, you forgot to pay the bill," and he just writes a check and then just throws it up in the air.
I don't know. This entire exchange has definitely solidified the idea that we're not ready to be in space. Space Force is a waste. I think it's time to close down NASA.
I think we need to go underwater because again, they're proving more and more each day that there are bigger fish in the sea than we thought, and we still haven't done it yet.
Yeah, the ocean's fucking scary, man. There's a lot of stuff down there. I'll tell you what's not down there is a backup of Moro's combat abilities via the space alien Android 7-3.
That
But
is true.
we do have it coming up in chapter 62. So they have the fusion. I guess like I said it earlier, I feel like they went out of their way today, thankfully, because it's sort of a given to me now. I have a little fly on here. I feel like it's sort of a given now that Goku's going to be the guy because he's told you right out of the gate. I didn't perfect Ultra Instinct. I only got down the Omen or Sign, depending on the
Right.
translation that you're reading. They may as well have like put a billboard up that said Vegeta's not going to win at that point. To me, but to have Vegeta come in there today and play an important part in dissipating Moro's energy how he did, but more specifically the explanation behind how that worked and how it is the basically the antithesis of energy that is compiled through a fusion or an absorption. And at the end of the chapter, what the fuck happens? A fusion. I feel like even though the Forced Spirit fusion was the highlight of the beginning of the chapter, people will be quick to forget. And when the fight between this new fused version of him and Vegeta or Goku happens, they might not be considering that this technique might also be effective against this new fusion. So don't count them out yet. Is my point, Leonard. How do you feel about the end of this chapter?
Uh, I thought it was good. I kind of agree with what you're saying. With Vegeta being able to, come back and be like, okay, fusion time, or try to do a technique that would stop the fusion. But I think it's gonna go a little bit differently. Uh, so the grand finale of my prediction. My prediction is a very weird one. So I feel that Majin Buu's gonna snap back, and the East Grand Kai Prime
Grand
Minister,
Supreme Kai, I think.
Grand Supreme Kai of time and
I could be
space.
fucking that up too. I think it's Grand Supreme Kai, but I could be fucking that up.
Yeah. But I feel like what's gonna happen is he's gonna come back. He's gonna like figure out what's going on and have no idea what to do, but try to stop him. And then I feel that he's gonna say something. Piccolo's gonna recognize something and then tell Vegeta to split him and Kami and Nail apart. And I feel like
Oh.
Kami, because again, we don't know necessarily how old Kami is from what I can recollect, but Kami may possibly knows about the Kais, so maybe he may know this supreme east, west, north, south, whatever Kai, and possibly work something out. If not, my other prediction, Vegeta's gonna get beat the shit out of him to the point where he's dead, and Goku's gonna go mad into Super Saiyan, get hit, then try to perfect Ultra Instinct, but in the process, die.
And then what?
I don't know. I haven't thought that far ahead.
Jesus, dude, I'm glad you're not fucking writing Dragon Ball.
Oh, if I did, trust me, I'd make it more like, oh man, I'd make it so intricate that people are gonna be like, he was talking about when this happened, that this and this and this and this. Like people are gonna think I'm freaking Sherlock Holmes with this.
Right. So I don't know. There's a few things in there that I think are maybe good guesses. I kind of do. I don't really remember what the heck happened with the Grand Supreme Kai. Like they have the big fight, three-way fight on Namek, and then what the heck happened to him?
He just went back into Majin Buu. Majin Buu's like, okay,
And then
it's time for
Majin
me
Buu
to
went back to
come out.
sleep.
Yeah, he's just like, okay, sleep time.
That was fucking strange. Maybe it would be cool if they brought him out to uh, I'll tell you what though. You start before we wrap the episode here. You started down the road of Vegeta using the fusion, the forced spirit fission on Piccolo, and that on paper sounds so cool and has a lot of potential. Imagine if Kami had to come, like, because fuck Nail, who cares? Like, Nail is just like Guru's, top bodyguard at the end of the day. Strong Namekian, nobody important in terms of the ranks of Namekian
Right.
outside of his association with Guru. But Kami, that's a motherfucker who could have some merit coming back into play. Who knows? Especially when you're talking in like this godly, magical realm of Dragon Ball. However, I don't think that'll happen. I only because I feel like that's something that you and I would think of if we had the reins to the story, But
Right.
I think back to the Tournament of Power. Like we had just started Super Dope. We were like maybe 4 or 5 months in, and it was the Kefla and cauliflower, kale and cauliflower fusion into Kefla, and I had this whole thing in my brain. I was like, they're gonna Universe 11's was it Universe 11? No, Universe 6. Universe 6's Saiyans and their Patara fusion, it's going to be permanent, just like Vegeta was supposed to be. It's the perfect solve on how annoying both of these characters are. We finally have one super strong female Saiyan on par with Goku and Vegeta immediately injected into the cast. Like I had this whole I made a whole podcast about it, dude. I like was up on fucking Mount Conspiracy Theory about Kale, Kefla, cauliflower, and like undoing the retcon of the Pataran fusion, of the Patara fusion. Um, you talking about that Piccolo thing just reminded me of that. And while I think that it would be so cool, I just, I'm sorry,
It's not
buddy.
gonna
I'm
happen.
sorry. I hate to be the one to tell you.
I figure it probably won't, but a boy can dream.
Yeah.
And I guess we'll hear moral of it.
God fucking damn it, Leonard. All right. All right, man. Well, that's gonna do it for Super Dope this week. I want to say thank you for Leonard for being my buddy and helping me get through these manga chapters the last couple of months. Even though it's just been the last couple of weeks, but we've now done 59, 60, and 61 together. So I guess that means you're probably on tap for 62, buddy. I just want to let you know now.
Oh, I'm excited. I can't wait. I'm gonna bring more Moro jokes. Uh I'm gonna bring more probably some more stupid jokes as well. I don't know. Dragon Ball Super Dope. It's super dope, and I'm glad to be part of the Super Dope team that can read.
Leonard, yeah, thank God Leonard's on fucking the super dope team that can read. Like I need more of those. So thank you so much for Leonard. I appreciate your time today, brother. I will talk with you soon. 62 is on the 20th, so we're sitting here today on the 30th. So maybe like 2, 3, 4 weeks somewhere in there, we can get back together and do this again. If you made it to the end of this podcast or this YouTube stream or whatever, if you are listening to the podcast though, there's a video for this, and I just talked with Leonard for the last hour or whatever the heck it was. I'm bald now. I look like Lex Luthor a little bit. It's kind of a weird new adjustment. I don't know how I feel, but if you want to see how shiny my head could be under my light in my bedroom, it's there. See it? It's right there. So go check it out. YouTube. Yeah, just look up Dragon Ball Super Dope. I'm pretty sure it'll pop up. If it doesn't, you're probably spelling it wrong. Make sure you rate and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, all the places where the podcasts live. Leonard, thank you so much again. NPC Pod, you guys back to recording yet or what?
Yes, we actually just had an episode that is coming out soon. We're back on our regular schedule, and this time we talk about gaming charities. So definitely, please, we suggest you give it a listen. And if you haven't already, give us a listen. Download all the podcasts and also download all Dragon Ball Super Dopes because obviously they are super dope.
That's a very questionable statement. At best, you guys are cool, but I don't know, man. I'm kind of hit or miss, but thanks,
Hey,
man.
you're the cooler version of Frieza.
I'll take that. I don't know if everyone would agree with that, especially in the content makers community. I have a story for you offline. But yeah, I'm gonna stop the recording here. If you check this out on YouTube, thank you for watching with us tonight. If you were in a live chat and left us comments, I don't know if anyone did that. I just assumed maybe one person did. If you're that one person, sorry, I didn't see that. But I'm sure it was a good comment. So keep commenting. Also, I love you. And good night.